So, there is more than enough evidence to show that the Rings of Power, the new Lord of the Rings epic series from Amazon, is going to suck really badly. I was going to say something
Nice
rude
containing yourself.
I had to. Right. So it began, right? The evidence of this is mounted, and so I thought we'd go through some of that. I'm not going to play any of the clips because I don't want us to get copyright struck. But
Especially not over something like this.
Exactly, it's not worth it. So this first teaser trailer came out on the 14th of February this year, and essentially all I took away from this is there are things in the world, and we should go see them. It's like, okay, brilliant. And it's a world that has things in.
The only thing that I personally took away from this, John is pointing out as well, he's got the thing installed showing that, I think it's a rough estimate of 1.8 million downvotes.
Yes, 30 million views, 129,000 upvotes, 1.8 million downvotes. That's pretty indicative that people didn't want this. Did they turn off the comments on this one, John? Because
scroll down for us, John. Yeah.
They did turn off the comments.
They did turn off the comments,
They initially hadn't turned off the comments, and the comments were all Tolkien's quote of evil can't create, it can only warp and destroy, or whatever the actual
Based?
quote. It was fantastic. But it was, and then they started filtering that phrase, so people started posting it in foreign, in Spanish and stuff like that. And it was just like, right, would you turn the comments off?
We can always find a way to break the system.
Yeah, but exactly. This trailer it gave no information.
The only information that I got from it is, wow, it looks like a generic action series.
Not even, I thought. Generic,
Well, I didn't...
Subpar.
Well, yeah, but I'm using generic as a synonym for subpar in this case, because I looked at it and I went, okay, what about this feels Tolkien? What about this has the whimsy, has the sense of adventure? Oh, we've got a woman climbing up a big mountain. I'm pretty sure I saw that in an episode of Game of Thrones when they were crossing the wall with Ygritte.
And not only that, it just looked like a very not even poorly done, but just there's something about CGI that is not deceptive to the eye anymore. I don't know what it is about CGI. Maybe I've just seen enough CGI in my life to recognise it when I see it.
I think it is a problem with these streaming service original shows, because for whatever reason, in a lot of big budget films, I have started to see like a bit of an improvement in quality, not necessarily in the Marvel stuff, because obviously they're stretching their animation studios out so thin it's untrue. But with some films that kind of one-offs, they know how to use CGI, like even The Northman, which I saw recently, had some brilliant special effects in it, both physical and CGI. But these original series on streaming services always have a budgetary issue that I can see immediately. I don't know what it is.
This had a budget of $1 billion. So if they had a budgeting issue...
It doesn't look it to me, though.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't look it. But I don't know what the problem is. I think it's just that... I don't know. It's just not persuasive to the eye to see a massive 3D rendering of like, oh, look at this gorgeous valley or something. I'm like, yeah, but I know it's just fake. Maybe it's just me. Anyway.
No, I agree. I think it might be the way the light hits things, perhaps.
Who knows? But anyway, on the 14th of July, they put out another teaser trailer. I was like, oh, brilliant. And this one had slightly more info, but still, I don't really know what's going on. You've got Galadriel arguing with... I can't really remember which one he's arguing with.
Who cares?
Yeah, who cares, right? But the one line that stuck out to me on this one was: the elves have the forest to protect, the dwarves have the mine, men have the fields, and Harfords have each other. And there's some kind of enemy that Galadriel keeps going on about, but we don't really know. So it's like, right, okay, there's a kind of vague story forming. Galadriel will be fighting an enemy. There are things in the world and people.
It's not even like you can really refer to the books properly to understand what's going to go on, because they've flat out admitted that they don't have rights to the books that they're supposed to be adapting, like the Silmarillion.
But this focused on the Harfords. Now, the Harfords are interesting, so let's talk about the Harfords. Lenny Henry's Harfords. Now, I'm not really interested in the race swapping anymore. It's like that's been done to death. But what's interesting, though, is that the term Harford is being used in lieu of the term Hobbit. As in, they do not refer to them as hobbits. They refer to them as like proto-hobbits or prehistoric hobbits. But
they're the indigenous hobbits.
Kind of, yes. But they call them Harfords and not hobbits, which is very interesting, right? But as he says, Lenny Henry says this, quote, "We're a nomadic tribe, moving with the weather and the fertility of the crops." You moved your crops? Crops go in the ground. That's you. If you're a nomadic tribe, you have herds. You don't plant crops because crops don't move. But anyway, okay.
I'm not particularly surprised that Sir Lenny Henry doesn't really know what he's talking about
It's
here.
not him, the problem, really. It's whoever wrote this is the problem. They're like, yeah, we'll just move with the fertility of the crops. Like, you've never been near a farm in your life. Shut up. But anyway, he says, with regards to the diversity and representation, he says, if you can't see it, you can't be it. Okay, well, I've seen a bunch of hobbits now, Lenny, and I'm 5'9". How do I become 4 foot tall? I can't be a hobbit, even though I can see it.
I mean, there are a few ways to become 4 foot tall.
Practically
just
speaking,
not pleasant.
it's not possible. All right. Finally, in this show, kids are going to see people of colour taking up space in the centre of a fantasy series. That really sounds like they're occupying it. We're taking up space. It's like, well, could you take up less space? Because you're sounding like, again, it's about you and not the property, right? No one was like Aragorn is taking up space in Lord of the Rings. No, he was a key character. You sound like an extra, an addition that nobody wants. But we're very visible in this world, and that's very exciting. Ooh, I'm so excited. Anyway, so Screen Rant did an explainer on the Harfords, which is interesting. You won't find traditional hobbits in Lord of the Rings, because this is thousands of years before the Hobbit. There's no Shire and no Baggins, etc., etc. So you only get Harfords. And so we see the Harfords for the very first time. Though not hobbits in the typical sense, Harfords assume the same role. So Harfords aren't hobbits, according to these. They're insular country dwellers who show little interest beyond their own narrow borders. They're nomads. They don't have borders. What are you talking about? They're nomads. But okay, never mind. They've got narrow borders. They say during this era, the hobbits were split into 3 distinct breeds, Harfords being the largest. Now, when they say largest, they mean most numerous, which is, as Tolkien said. So Tolkien describes Harfords as browner of skin, smaller and shorter. So most people would have said Mediterranean, but they were like, yeah, so Lenny Henry. And they go on about how they were established, which is fine. But that's obviously not canon to the lore. Harfords are a form of hobbit. If we go to the next one, this is just like the Lord of the Rings fandom, which is the most comprehensive place on the entire bloody internet you'll find about it. But Harfords are just a type of hobbit. There are other types of hobbits. They're just one of them. So they're using them as like...
Oh, they were even the most common hobbits, according to this.
Yes. But now Harfords are not even hobbits. And which makes me think that they don't have the right to use the word hobbit.
That's kind of the vibe that I was getting, especially when it comes to... They basically fill the exact same purpose in the plot and world of the and universe.
Yeah. Well, why don't you just call them hobbits? Well, you know, our lawyers have told us we can't. Because I'm pretty sure it's... Warner Brothers that owns The Hobbit, and so Amazon, of course, doesn't. Anyway, so on July the 22nd, another trailer dropped, and I was really excited about this trailer because this is where we got to see Sauron. Sauron is featured, and again, like, we don't get very much information about what the actual story is going to be. Like, I don't really know what's going on, and if I didn't know anything about Lord of the Rings anyway, and I didn't know that this character was Sauron, I wouldn't know that this is probably going to be about how the rings are forged and like how he ends up deceiving the elves and forging.
Well, let's be honest. These trailers are made for the kind of, let's be honest, retards that we saw in some of the previous teasers for the show. The kinds who are like, I'm so excited for queer representation. It's like,
yes.
You have never watched anything related to Lord of the Rings. You have never read anything related to it. You just want to see black people.
That and gay people. Don't forget.
Yeah, sorry.
Which we'll get to in a second. Something about a shadow. But again, we don't know, really.
A bit racist.
But we have slightly more info. Still don't know anything about it. But as you can see, 11 million views, 79,000 upvotes, 312,000 downvotes. Need to up those numbers.
You'd think they'd have learnt their lesson by now.
So anyway, let's look at Sauron in the trailer. If you go to the next one. Sauron arrived in the full trailer for Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. As you can see, all of Middle-earth's inhabitants are represented, from dwarves to elves to Harfoot and men. Again, not hobbits. Men. Not hobbits, Harfoot. Okay,
to evil white men.
Well, that's literally what Sauron is. Evil white man. But that's fine. That's fine.
He's striking fear into my heart right as we speak.
Yeah, exactly. He looks utterly emaciated. But they're all confronted with the terrifying reality that a long-feared evil has returned. So that's exactly the same as Lord of the Rings. It's the exact same plot as Lord of the Rings. The evil has returned to Middle-earth. Again.
We must go on an adventure to stop it.
Yes, that is exactly it.
Except this is going to take place over multiple millennia by the sounds of it, judging by some of the time skips I've heard in some of the leaks.
Well, this is the major problem with the entire thing, that obviously Tolkien purists, as opposed to Tolkien heretics, have a problem with, and the Tolkien purists are the fans of Tolkien. The entire timeline takes place over like 1,000 years, so they've compressed it to like one human lifetime. So it won't make sense from a Tolkien purist perspective, but that doesn't really matter. Who cares? No one watching this is like going to care about that, surely. Will they?
No one. Tolkien fans are well known for
not caring
being
very
very
much.
casual, really, aren't they?
They're big on their member berries, though. Because, I mean, in this, they're like, hey, did you catch the Balrog at the end of the trailer? Oh, Balrog. I remember Balrog.
Jangly keys.
From a film I actually enjoyed. The Dark Lord Sauron isn't messing around. Well, neither are memers on the internet, because Sauron actually looked a lot like Eminem, and so that's exactly what people came up with. Oh, what? We can't see the... Oh, well, there was a picture of... Sadly, we can't see the picture of Sauron, but he looked a lot like Eminem, and so people just started repurposing Sauron Eminem memes with what Sauron would write if he was talking about it. But what was very interesting is, for some reason, Sauron, well, he looks like, you know, a sort of like 20-something Californian twink, and there's the picture, right? And people on Twitter were like, hey, he's a non-binary icon.
Oh, no.
Really, Sauron's a non-binary icon. That's brilliant.
Every single time they immediately side with the bad guys.
I was thinking school shooter, but I mean, if you want him to be a non-binary icon, that's fine.
A non-binary school shooting icon, perhaps.
Which has happened.
What were you going to ask?
No. The whole thing is, okay, well, fine. You know, he's going to be the evil white man, but he's not going to be straight. He's not going to be a cis. He's going to be the NB icon. And they are beautiful, quote unquote. You don't know that Sauron's pronouns are they, honestly. So we don't actually know from Tolkien's perspective what Sauron actually looked like. Because the good thing about Sauron was that we didn't know what he looked like, and they were like, "Hey, we can ruin that for you."
I know one thing about what he looks like, which is his awesome armor, and that's all I needed to know.
Yeah. Well, Tolkien said. It seemed to men that Sauron was great, though they feared the light of his eyes. To many he appeared fair, to others terrible, but some evil. So we don't actually know, we don't get a description of Sauron, which is how you want your villain to be. So it looms large in your mind, but you can never really pin it down. Or you can have an Eminem clone, I don't know, whatever. But anyway, so there was a clip that was leaked ahead of time.
Oh no.
Let's go to the next one, John. It's just so good. This is what people have been calling the yeeting of Galadriel. Let's watch just let this play. So this guy throws down his sword and fighting a troll, and throws Galadriel up to stab or slash the troll.
Weightlessly throws her up as well. He just sort of like gives her a little bit of a. Oh,
it's such obvious like
wire work.
Wire work. That's it, with a harness, and it's just like, look, this is absolute cringe. $1 billion, folks. $1 billion. Bring back the CGI. Just do everything for.
Why is? I mean, I know why she is. It's because, like, with new NB icon Sauron, they want her to be a strong feminine icon who's able to do everything the men can do, but twice as good.
Galadriel is now the warrior girl boss, which is wonderful. Because, I mean, I don't know if you remember Lord of the Rings and Galadriel in it.
Never heard of it.
Nah, for anyone who doesn't know, you know, some person on a remote island somewhere, she was a more sort of Yoda-like figure, where she had a kind of majesty and ethereal presence that meant that essentially she falls into the same sort of category, and so the phrase Yoda should not wield a lightsaber applies also to Galadriel, right? It's beneath their dignity. These characters have power that is beyond merely hitting things with swords.
And she's so fair and noble and regal that simply presenting a small strand of her own hair to Gimli is seen as
3 strands of hair.
Oh, yes, is a great honour to him.
And so essentially turning these characters into warriors is debauching them in a way. It dishonours them. But anyway, let's go to Entertainment Weekly's big reveal of this. Look at this video, right? This was how they decided to pitch all of their characters. Is this a daytime TV soap?
I feel like they're all about to start bashing out Bohemian Rhapsody.
It is just the worst, isn't it?
What's she doing?
I don't know. It's just, what is this? Like, I'm meant to look at this and be like, oh, I can't wait to watch this obvious cosplay.
God, the proud warrior women flaring their nostrils derisively at me. Wonderful.
I just...
He seems happy to be there.
I know.
He's the only one.
Just, it is so awful, right? So anyway, it's absolute cringe, and it's going to get even cringier. So in fact, yeah, someone actually did do a little like Days of Our Lives parody of this.
Yeah.
Where,
I think more than anything, they all look like they absolutely hate me, the viewer, looking at this. Oh,
I mean, no, but that's the thing. Like, this is actually this style from like the 80s.
oh my god!
It's really bizarre. Like, why they chose this is just
Well, return to tradition, obviously.
maybe. But anyway, let's go back a second. I want to pull up a few quotes out of this because this is really good, right? So it's been made by two chaps called Payne and McKay, who the showrunners for it. Two writers who were at that point best known for uncredited work on the Star Trek franchise. So, like, Amazon were like, yeah, have $1 billion. You guys who've done nothing and made nothing and have an uncredited work on Star Trek.
This is a massive problem in the entertainment industry, specifically surrounding Hollywood. They keep giving absolute nobodies the keys to gigantic franchises and millions, if not in this case, billions of dollars. And all I can say is these guys must give incredible handjobs.
I can only imagine.
Only thing I can explain it with.
It's amazing. Like, two nobodies got given $1 billion and permission to desecrate Tolkien's work. So, okay, it's amazing. Like, one thing I find really amusing is, like, they joke that they share a brain, and it's like, that's not something cool.
That's weird.
Also, that means you've got one brain between two people. No wonder you're both half-wits.
I mean, the show certainly looks that way so far.
Exactly. It certainly shows. But they say, we care so much about this. We want to get it right. We know what this means to so many people. This isn't a job you take just to do another job. This is a job that you know is going to be part of your legacy forever. It's like, God, can you feel the sword of Damocles hanging above your head there? This is going to be part of your legacy forever. You are going to be the guys who incompetently screwed up this. You're never going to get away from this, right? But anyway, so the actors and actresses were like, working on this became a fellowship. Became a fellowship, folks. We were forced to lean on each other. We didn't have anyone else. We were on an island away from our support systems mid-COVID pandemic. Oh, spare me. You know, you were being paid millions of dollars to go to New Zealand and cosplay as hobbits. You know, it's like...
I'm being on the same island as Jacinda Ardern. Okay, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
Fair enough, yeah. It probably was tough. But anyway, they say the show also presents a more diverse version of Middle-earth. The Rings of Power will include the first female dwarves depicted on screen. That's not true. There are female dwarves in The Hobbit.
Oh, yes.
And they actually had beards as well, incidentally. Several of the actors many of the actors of colour will be playing elves, dwarves, Harfords, and more. Again, they don't call them hobbits. They're not allowed to call them hobbits for some reason. Several of the actors note that although their casting may be a milestone, diversity has always been a theme of Tolkien's work, which often tells of characters uniting in the face of adversity despite their different backgrounds. Lol. Okay, yeah. Tolkien was always diversity, you know. This is not stunt casting, adds British actress Bonaidi, who was born...
A very British name.
Well, she was born in Iran.
There you go.
This isn't tokenization or a lot of the things that we're used to in past roles. Every person has been cast because they're the best people for these roles. So the fat black woman is the dwarf without the beard, best person for the job.
Only person. She just came in and blew them away.
Yeah.
With the audition.
But
incredible.
They were the best person for those roles, regardless of ethnicity and race, and I find that super empowering. Okay. So anyway, this is obviously and horrifically woke. So lots of people have been pointing this out, and so the people who are creating this show, the executive producer Lindsay Weber, we've told this before, but she was like, "Well, it's only natural that an adaptation of Tolkien's work would reflect what the world actually looks like."
What?
There's whole races of midgets running around.
This incredibly detailed and comprehensive fantasy world that
Why
he
can't
created.
it look like Middle Earth? It's got to look like New York. Don't know why. Don't know why.
All right.
The woman who plays the dwarf princess Disa says, "We are redressing the balance within film and television industry, and of course this franchise, and I hope lots of franchises moving forward." So this is a ploy for diversity, but they're addressing balances here. It's their time, and it's so important, and I hope many people will see this fantasy and be able to relate to it. This is a reflection of the world we live in. Is Middle-earth a reflection of the world we live in?
Now, I'm pretty sure Middle-earth, shockingly enough, is its own self-contained fantasy universe.
I thought so too. But it turns out...
And if I remember correctly as well, Tolkien was also very, very explicit that any allegory that could be taken from Lord of the Rings was completely coincidental because he never intended any allegory. He just wanted it to basically be a big fairy tale mythology for English people.
Yes, that's exactly correct. So them saying this is a reflection of the world we live in, well, then you've screwed it up. Then you've messed it up. You didn't understand what the point of this was at all. Another person in there, the guy who plays Arondir, said, the awareness of diversity with Tolkien's source material has grown. The cinematic world that Peter Jackson created has immense value, but we've shifted lenses since then. Very just explicit. They've shifted lenses. They're not interested in the Tolkien lens to create, as Peter Jackson approached it, to create the most Tolkien representation that was possible. No. This is a reflection of the world we're in. So it's got to be diverse. The conversation is different right now, but we're going back to the source material. The world is diverse, not only in race, but also in thought. It's a diverse mix. We're just adding people from diverse backgrounds. Let's keep saying the word diverse, like that's meant to make it good.
I mean, that last bit there is, we're just adding people from diverse backgrounds. Yes, that is all you're doing.
Yes, that is literally it. But anyway, if you want to know why representation is actually important to them, you can go and check out my deep think on the politics of Warhammer 40,000. Now, this isn't really just about Warhammer 40,000. That's just a framing device. There are lots of things in this that are important, especially the section about political representation, because I go through Hannah Pitkin's work on the concept of political representation and explore why they're doing this and why they keep talking about it, why they keep talking about diversity and representation, right? And Pitkin has 4 different views on what representation actually means. One of them, and this is the one they keep talking about, is descriptive representation, in the way that something stands for a particular group based on observable characteristics, such as race, sex, class, etc., etc. This is in opposition to what she calls substantive representation, as in something that is represented and acting in the interests of those people represented, rather than actually being the descriptive representation. And so what we could say is, right, the reason, for example, that Gandalf is something you like is not because he's a straight white man. It's... I'm not like, and say the Hobbits, in fact. Let's take Samwise Gamgee, right? He's my favourite character in Lord of the Rings. He's the most relatable to me. Why? Because he's 4 foot tall. Oh no, I'm not 4 foot. He doesn't represent me in any way. What he represents is my interest in being like the regular person in this giant fantasy world. He's the regular dude who he wants to get a girl, raise his family, and grill and just chill out. That's how he represents me. Not in what he actually is. Like, it's not because he's 4 foot tall. It's not because he's a hobbit. It's because of his personality and his character. And that is the substantive representation. That is not the descriptive representation. But again, go check that out. It's really worth the time. I worked really hard on it. Anyway, so the co-creator, J.D. Payne, was like, hey, this is the story that fans have always wanted.
I think
you thought Lord of the Rings was the story fans have already wanted.
The fans might have something to say about that.
Well, millions of them already have, if downvotes are anything to go by. But this is the story fans have always wanted to see fleshed out, but until now has only been told in whispers. And it's like, okay, well, fair enough. I'm all for this. I think this is a brilliant idea. Can't wait to see the diversity in action. And at least you went and were like, okay, so who actually made the Lord of the Rings films? Oh, that's it, Peter Jackson. And he did really well. So we messaged him, right? And he was like, yeah, I'd love to help. Can I get a copy of the script? And they were like, no. He got ghosted, apparently. Even go to the next one. He says, they asked me if I wanted to be involved. And I said, well, that's an impossible question to answer without seeing the script. And they were like, yeah, as soon as we finish the scripts, we'll send them to you. And they never showed up. Okay. And there are allegations that this has come from the Tolkien estate itself, which is very strange, and I don't really think I believe them. So this last article here says that this appears to have happened on Amazon's side, right? So when we reached the comment, the company gave a statement that said, in pursuing the rights for our show, we were obligated to keep the series distinct and separate from the films, because Warner Brothers owns the rights to the Jackson movies, so Amazon can't use any elements that originated in them. But the Tolkien estate, whose chief representative was Christopher Tolkien, although I believe he's recently died.
Yes, I think it was 2 years ago or last year.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, it might have been even further back than that, sorry.
But he had been vocal in the past about his distaste for Jackson's films, saying the commercialization has reduced the aesthetic and philosophical impact of the creation to nothing, he said in 2012. And so basically they think it might be to do with that, but nobody actually knows. And some insiders are like, Don't know. But the point is, Peter Jackson got ghosted, and why would you ghost the person who created the films everyone likes of this when making this?
Well, it's very simple. There's the quote that's gone around a long time where he said that when they went to create it, they didn't want to inject politics in it whatsoever. They wanted to make it for Tolkien if he had still been alive.
Yes, and one of the things that the showrunners have been saying is, oh, well, this is going to be timeless. It's like, it can't be timeless if you're injecting contemporary politics into it. Ironically, Lord of the Rings, the films that Jackson made, are actually timeless because he didn't inject modern politics into them. It's purely Tolkien. And, I mean, go back and watch them now. They're still just as good as the first times you bloody watched them. Anyway, this Rings of Power thing is going to suck. And it's going to be glorious how badly this does.
And I'm going to have to hate watch it.
Yeah, same.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the Contemplation series, this one on our amazing space exploration. You want to find out what else Josh is putting out, you can follow him on Getter at Josh_firm on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.